You ever rehearse a conversation in your head while waiting for their reply at the same time? You check your phone, see nothing, but somehow your mind has already imagined 10 different outcomes. One where they misunderstand you, one where they get annoyed, one where you finally explain yourself perfectly. And before anything even happens, you already feel emotionally exhausted. A lot of people live like this every day, replaying conversations in the shower, during walks, or while trying to fall asleep. Entire emotional scenes playing in their head over people who have no idea they're even part of the conversation. And the strange part is, your body reacts like it's real. Your chest tightens, your heartbeat changes, and suddenly you feel anxious, defensive, embarrassed, or angry over a situation that technically doesn't even exist. Most people call this overthinking, but usually it's emotional self-protection. Because people who rehearse conversations constantly are often people who learned that being misunderstood hurts deeply. Maybe you explained yourself before and got dismissed. Maybe people only listen long enough to respond, not understand. Maybe every emotional conversation felt less like connection and more like defending your existence. So now your brain prepares for emotional impact before impact even arrives. That's why you replay tiny tone shifts for hours. Why one dry text can ruin your mood instantly. Why you think of perfect responses long after the moment is already over. Your brain believes preparation creates safety. If I can predict the conversation, maybe I can control the pain. But eventually, the rehearsing becomes more than preparation. It becomes a way to emotionally survive uncertainty. Because in your imagination, you finally get control over something real life never guarantees: being understood. Nobody interrupts you halfway through explaining yourself there. Nobody tells you you're too emotional. Nobody twists your intentions into something ugly. And honestly, imaginary conversations can start feeling safer than real ones. Because real conversations carry risk. Risk of rejection. Risk of embarrassment. Risk of realizing someone never understood you as deeply as you hoped they did. So the mind keeps rehearsing, again, and again, and again, trying to perfect a version of you that cannot be rejected. And underneath all of it is usually one quiet fear people rarely admit out loud. What if people only like the version of me that stays easy to handle? That's why some people can explain themselves perfectly in their head, but freeze the moment the conversation becomes real. Because imaginary conversations feel controlled. Real vulnerability doesn't. After a while, you stop entering conversations openly. You enter them prepared for emotional damage. You start analyzing pauses, reading into wording, and predicting abandonment from tiny changes in tone. You don't experience connection naturally anymore. You manage it carefully. And that becomes exhausting because your nervous system starts reacting to possibilities as if they're already reality. You carry heartbreak that hasn't happened yet, rejection that hasn't arrived yet, arguments that only exist in your imagination. But once you understand where this habit comes from, something shifts. You stop seeing yourself as irrational for overthinking every interaction. You realize your brain learned this pattern to protect you from feeling emotionally unsafe, powerless, or unseen. Those conversations in your head were never really about winning arguments. They were attempts to feel prepared, attempts to feel safe, attempts to finally experience connection without fear. But healing begins when you slowly stop treating every conversation like something you need to survive perfectly. Because not every silence is rejection. Not every misunderstanding destroys connection. Sometimes conversations will be awkward. Sometimes people will misunderstand you. Sometimes you won't explain yourself perfectly. And you'll still be worthy of love, respect, and connection anyway. Because eventually, peace comes from realizing you cannot rehearse your way into emotional safety forever. And some people get so used to rehearsing connection in their head, they forget what natural connection even feels like in real life.